The USA after the Second World War. The United States emerged from the Second World War as the most prosperous country in the world. In the 1950s, Democratic President Harry S. Truman was followed by a Republican war hero, Dwight D. Eisenhower. In foreign policy, the USA sent aid to Europe through the Marshall Plan and joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the United Nations Organization. The main rival to the USA was the Soviet Union, and tension between them led both to the period known as the Cold War and to a wave of anti-communism at home instigated by the Senator Joseph McCarthy. A young Democrat, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, became president in 1961, promising to tackle social problems and discrimination. During his presidency, the Berlin Wall was built, the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred, and the U.S. military became advisors in South Vietnam. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas in 1963. His successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, continued the reforms with the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and a program of health care. In the 1960s, the United States were a troubled society with strong protest movements among the minorities and on university campuses. Martin Luther King Jr. led a nonviolent African-American civil rights movement, while the Black Panthers and the Black Muslims, led by Malcolm X, advocated more violent methods of integration. Both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King were assassinated. A powerful anti-war movement against the American involvement in Vietnam found expression in protest songs and demonstrations. The Republican president Richard Nixon ended American involvement in Vietnam in 1973. His administration saw the first landing on the moon, but faced economic difficulties. His presidency ended when the Watergate scandal forced his resignation in 1974. His vice president, Gerald Ford, took his place and was followed by the Democrat Jimmy Carter, who is remembered for the Camp David agreements between Egypt and Israel. Former actor Ronald Reagan became president in 1981. His economic policy, Reaganomics, encouraged free enterprise and brought about cuts in government spending. He was re-elected in 1984. Republican George H.W. Bush then became president. In 1990, the United States became involved in the Persian Gulf crisis against Saddam Hussein's annexation of Kuwait. The Gulf War began in January 1991 with a military operation called Desert Storm and ended in a U.S. victory in March. The Democrat Bill Clinton succeeded Bush and remained for 2 terms. He fought for social reform and achieved a further peace agreement between Yasser Arafat's PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, and Yitzhak Rabin of Israel. Republican George W. Bush won the election in 2000. In the first year of his presidency, the USA suffered 2 horrific terrorist attacks by al-Qaeda on September 11th, and he ordered an attack on their bases in Afghanistan. In 2003, he declared war on Iraq, accusing Saddam Hussein of having large quantities of weapons of mass destruction. The American invasion had limited international support and proved costly in terms of military expense and lives lost, as well as undermining American prestige abroad. In November 2008, the Democrat Barack Hussein Obama, a young African American, became the 44th U.S. president. He promised to provide tax cuts, aid to cities and states, the creation of new jobs, the reduction of carbon emissions, the improvement of health care, and the reduction of Bush administration's deficit. Obama was re-elected in 2012. In November 2016, the Republican Donald Trump was elected as the 45th president of the USA.